I'm doing another survey again. This time I have the pleasure of being able to interview Nuts, who, as you all know, basically what made this whole thing very famous is the controversial videos of Osmani and Nuts versus Hummer and Blowback Doll. And so Nuts, he regretfully informs that he won't be able to make it. But so I was able to interview him on his thoughts about not only the general survey questions, but I went on to ask him some personal questions that I want to delve in about the particular situation. So let us start with the general questions that I have for Nuts and see what he has to say. Nuts said he will try to attend the tournament in November, but he could not make this one because of work. So let's start with the first question, general survey question for Nuts. I asked him, who is going to win 2002? ¿Quién va a ganar 2002? He says, now I'm going to zoom out because I'm going to read it to you. More than anything, he thinks that I'm going to read this just how he says it. More than anything, I think there are 3 possible candidates that are going to win the tournament. Kula, he is said to be the Mexican Manny Pacquiao. He has a lot of experience in tournaments, and he has demonstrated that. Bart, he is another complete player with a lot of experience. He has been one of the most consistent players in Mexico. And also Zeus. He believes Zeus is another person that can win. In reference to why he does not believe Hummer will win, he says that he thinks Hummer is a spectacular player, but I do not think he is accustomed to the style of play in Mexico. And I say this because I mentioned the showboats and the pressure that comes with playing in Mexican tournaments. It is this pressure that I believe is why I do not think Hummer will win. Hummer will do well in the tournament, but I do not believe he will win. The second question. Let me translate this. Estuve haciendo una entrevista con Nuts de Tijuana. Y la primera pregunta que le hice fue, ¿a quién piensa que va a ganar el 2002? Y dice Nuts que piensa que el torneo va a ser en contra Kula, Bart y Zeus, o Ismael, el final. Piensa que Hummer es un buen jugador, un jugador, que va a hacer muy bien el torneo. Pero piensa que de la presión y de los ruidos, de gritar y todo eso, que piensa que va a perder el Hummer. Okay, next question, guys. He's in Spanish, so I can just basically read this. And again, I'm reading them. I want to get input from people because it is 2 weeks away. Or it's one of the tournaments next week. Sorry. Okay, second question. How do you think the Mexicans will do against the top players in Japan? I'm going to read it in Spanish and I'm going to translate it to English. Dice que ¿cómo piensas harían los mexicanos en contra de los mejores de Japón? Dice Nuts, pienso que cualquier rival que nuestros tops conocidos a nivel nacional se enfrenten desempeñarían un excelente papel contra cualquier jugador de cualquier país, puesto que han demostrado tener la capacidad de juego y sobre todo entusiasmo, disculpe, por la competencia que se da en este juego. Además, es muy motivante para todos el jugar a nivel internacional, más allá del juego en la cual estés compitiendo. Siempre será un factor en la que das todo de ti. Basically, he is saying he believes that the top players, in a nutshell, can compete with anyone from any country, not just Japan. He believes that they can compete. They have demonstrated that they can play and under pressure and they can perform. So he believes that they will be able to compete with the top players from any country. So he thinks that they can go head to toe with M-Dash, Ugishi, with Tatsuya, with Kiapu. He thinks they can go the tops, the Kula, Bart, Zeus, etc. can go head to toe with them. The third question. ¿Piensas que Hummer ganaría en contra de los mejores de México? I'm asking if he thinks Hummer will win, or who do you think that Hummer will beat of the top players in Mexico? Let me scroll down. Man. Hate that you're always hearing me cough up all the time on every video. I've noticed that, but hey, You know, whatever, sorry. Okay, here's what he says in Spanish. En los personales de Homer vs. México veo que se va a enfrentar a varios contrincantes muy fuertes, por lo cual lo que ha demostrado Homer en GGPO y por qué se dice en el arcades está muy parejo. Yo pienso que sí va a ganarle a varios, pero siente que va a perder contra los más fuertes, aunque también todo depende de cómo juegan tanto en los nuestros, ya que en este tipo de choques no gana el más fuerte, sino el que gana más, sino el que está más concentrado y más nervioso de hacer que tenga. Basically, he's saying that he believes the Hummer is going to, you know, play a lot of strong people. But he says Hummer is shown, he is demonstrated by GGPO, and that whatever he's talking about, how he says in arcades, that he is very similar. That he is very, very similar, not only the level of skill, but he's similar between his level in GGPO and arcade. It's similar. He thinks that Hummer is going to beat a lot of people, but he feels personally that Hummer is going to lose against the strongest players. And he says everything obviously, you know, depends on how the Mexican players play and, you know, how nerves and all that stuff tips in, but that's how he feels. Next question. ¿Y cómo haría Hummer en México? ¿Cuál lugar? I'm asking him what places he think Hummer will get in the tournament. Nuts will tell me. Sin duda, la llegada de Hummer será un buen espectáculo y realizará un muy buen papel en nuestro país. De modo que nuestros jugadores tendrán que tener mucho cuidado al jugar con él para salir victoriosos. Pienso que Hummer sí podría llegar a la semifinal o final del torneo. This is what Nuts is saying. He says, without a doubt, the arrival of Hummer will be a great, spectacular event. Very spectacular event. And he will realize, and people will realize, or he will be have a very good role or place in Mexico. And in place of, or in talking to our players, the Mexican players, they will have to be very careful playing against him in order to be victorious. He says he thinks that Hummer can arrive or can make it up to the semifinal or the end, the grand finals of the tournament. This gets me excited because just imagine if that happened. Everyone in the whole world is going to watch. But, all right, let's get back to the questions. All right, number 5. En tu opinión, ¿quién es el mejor jugador de México en el 2002? I'm asking him his opinion, who is the best player in Mexico in 2002. Nuts says, bueno, el hablar del mejor jugador en cualquier juego siempre se crea mucho polémica, dado que siempre van a haber jugadores que nos superen en cualquier aspecto. Es muy difícil dar el nombre de un jugador, puesto que en México hay varios. Como ya lo mencioné con anterioridad, Kula, Bart y Zeus podrían llegar a ser los mejores de México por el momento y en el que se encuentran en nivel. Pero en el camino vienen también muchos jugadores como Osmani, Clavi, Abraham, Luis Chas, Gato y muchos más, que también tienen condiciones para ser uno de los mejores de México. Así que para mí es muy difícil dar un nombre en el específico. He's saying basically it's a political thing. It's hard in Mexico to pick the best player out of 30, basically, as far as the number 1 overall player, because, you know, it depends. But he says the top 3, he says, are Kula, Bart, and Ismael, or Zeus. But, you know, he's saying Osmani, Scato, Luis Cha, Abraham, as well as shown that they are good, they can win as well. But he says those are your top 3, but otherwise it's really difficult to narrow it down because of the level of skill being very similar. So that's what he says. Moving on, guys. All right, here now we get to the personal questions. Those are all the 5 ones. Now I'm going to ask him the personal questions about, you know, the GGPO matches and stuff. Explica quién piensas es mejor, Blowback Doll or Hummer, y por qué. I'm asking him who does he think is better, Blowback Doll or Hummer, and why. Estos dos players de Japón en GGPO son los primeros rivales que tuve el gusto de jugarles, con un nivel impresionante, puesto que son estilos totalmente distintos
a los nuestros y con capacidad de reacción muy exagerada. De estos jugadores he visto peleas entre ellos y he practicado con ambos. Por lo que he visto y practicado con ellos, el mismo Blowback Dog me ha dicho que Hummer es un poco mejor que él, puesto que es un player más conocido, y tiene mejor juego que el mismo Blow, tanto en GGPO como Arcade. Aunque yo también no descarto el juego de Doll, que es bastante fuerte. Now, this is an interesting reply, guys. He says, between these two players in Japan on GGPO, he says those are his first rivals that he's had the pleasure of playing with a very impressionable, a very good level of skill. He thinks his style play from Hummer and Blowback Dog very different. They're very distinct from theirs, the Mexican style, and that they can react very good well. And from these two players, he's seen matches between them, and he's talked to both of them. And Blowback Dog has told him that he thinks Hummer's a little better than him, and also that Hummer's a player that's more well known than Blowback Dog. And but he still says that Blowback Dog is very, very strong, very, very strong player.